The concept of return on investment has a lot to do with the total cost of college, the opportunities that you have once you graduate from college, but also what are the opportunities that you have while you're in that school. So I'm going to really talk about things that you as a family should be more concerned about when you're talking about college than just the name of the school, because everybody knows UCLA. Everybody knows the common schools that are thrown around. What I'm going to try to do is educate you on how to think beyond the name and have real constructive conversations with your child to see what is it that we can do together to make this a good education for us financially and for you socially and academically. I first want to start with, what are the majors today that are paying off the most? I'm going to go through that real quick. So if you want to jot down a couple of these, I'm going to share with you. For example, physician's assisting is one of the top growing fields right now that are in very high demand. It's at a 37% growth rate at the moment. Bless you. To give you an example, compared to graphic design, which is growing at less than 7% as far as a field that you can get into. So if you're talking about return on investment, a lot of it has to do with the major that you choose in college as well. There will be about 39,700 new positions over the next 10 years. And the average salary for a PA or a physician's assistant is $120,000 a year. Statistician, or more specifically, if you want to really get into the nuts and bolts of what type of statistician I'm talking about, actuary or an actuarial science. These are people that will be plucked out of college by big companies because they help their systems run more efficiently. They save them a lot of money because they're able to run probability models. So if you're good at math, you should be looking into actuarial science. Occupational therapy is actually a field that's in a high growth rate as well. 27,000 job openings, 21% growth rate. Information security analyst is another high growing field.
When you talk about growth rate, over
Sure.
what period of time?
Over the next 10 years.
10 years.
Mm-hmm. Good question. The Board of Labor and Statistics, they put this study out and they said, what we're noticing in trends, this is what we're going to be seeing over the next 10 years for that. Information security analysts, 28,000 job openings, 28% growth rate, about $119,000 a year average salary. Let's go on the flip side of this. What majors are really not paying off that well today? Anthropology, right now, the recent graduate unemployment rate is about 10.5% within anthropology. And graphic design, commercial art is also another area that is not going to be as high in demand over the next 10 years as well. So looking at it from this point of view, I do want to go over the basic schools everybody knows about. You've heard of the UC schools, you know Stanford, you know MIT. These are just name brand schools. Or the ones that you see playing football on Saturday mornings and you watch them. These are names like University of Oregon, University of Michigan. A lot of students are really interested in these schools now because colleges do a good job of branding their name and it becomes embedded in your child's psyche. And they say, what college do you want to go visit? Well, the ones that I see on TV are the cool ones, right? We have to get beyond that. Now, what do these schools have in common? U.S. Naval Academy, Rose-Hulman Institute, Stevens Institute, WPI, Missouri University of Science. What all of these schools have in common is that they all offer higher starting salaries for their graduates than any UC school. Again, part of this return on investment equation has to do with demand for starting salary. So be honest with me, are there any schools on this list that you've never heard of before? Yeah. So it's our job as parents to take our students on school tours, educate them on what they should be doing in terms of college prep, but more importantly, what I think we should be doing is having conversations about these are the opportunities that you're going to have if you graduate from this type of school. The reason I brought this up because we just talked about growth rates, new position, mid-year career salary. There was a student that I worked with 4 years ago who applied to the Jacobs School of Engineering at UC San Diego. Her father was an engineer. He earns over $200,000 a year. If you make $200,000 a year, you're not getting financial aid at a UC school. Sorry to break that to you right now. Because the Jacobs School of Engineering received a $100 million grant from a big tech company that year, she actually got her entire education subsidized through the Jacobs School of Engineering through that grant that they had. So what I'm trying to tell you is irrespective of how much income you have, you should be looking more importantly at the program and the major, because that will end up paying dividends for you as you're looking at scholarship opportunities as well. So factors that go into return on investment, obviously the total cost of education. How about internship availability? What's important about this, I have a student right now that's at Northeastern. They have what's called a co-op program. They make it mandatory. Before you graduate, you are in a full year in your industry, working at a company within your field. Do you think that those kids are going to have jobs lined up for them by the time they graduate? Job placement after graduation, demand for starting salary, student to faculty ratio. Parents, please, please, please have this conversation with your child. I can't tell you how many times I spoke to a student who said, yeah, Trevor, I like to raise my hand in class. I like to be able to ask my professor questions. I like to be able to work in small groups. But then that same student's interested in going to a school like, I'll just say UCLA, where the average class size is 400, 500 students. Are you going to get that type of interaction that you're really seeking out? Probably not. Am I saying that a research institution with students in class is bad? Absolutely not. I have students that thrive in that type of environment. I don't say this negatively to UC schools because I send students there every year, but parents, if you're paying X amount of dollars a year in tuition, I would expect that you're looking for the best return on that investment. If during the undergrad, 80% of your classes are taught by graduate students and not professors, are we really getting the most out of that we should be? Now flip that on its head. If we go into a UC school for graduate, yeah, you're going to be taught by a professor 100% of the time. But if we're looking for undergrad, it's not the case. You'll be learning majority of the time from a grad student. How many of you, by show of hands, are thrilled to apply to Babson College? One. I like it. How many of you, be honest, have never heard of Babson College before? Okay. If you're interested in entrepreneurship or business, this is the top school in the nation right now as far as return on investment for business and entrepreneurship, Babson College. How many of you have heard of UMass Lowell? It's the first school in the United States to offer plastics engineering as a major, one of the top return on investment schools. How many of you are interested potentially, or students, how many of you are interested in going into engineering? All right, we have 2 students in here. Nice. Colorado School of Mines. This is a school that you should familiarize yourself with. Colorado School of Mines, they produce graduates that starting salaries are about $8,000 less than those who are graduating from Caltech, just to kind of give you the idea of what level they're on. If you're interested in engineering, please do yourself a favor and look into that school. In the last session, one of the parents asked, well, what happens if my child switches their major in college? Parents, how many of you changed your major? More than 3 times? It happens. So don't expect that they're going to get this down to a science, but one of the things that I would promote that they do, if you can give them the opportunity to, get some internship, get some job shadowing opportunities, let them feel it out. You know, have them do a full day shadowing a professional in this if you can, because it's so valuable to have a student realize what they're good at and to see them doing it in the real world. And sometimes a student will do a job shadow and they say, I can never picture myself doing that in a million years, but that's good. It's a good thing to find that out now. Financial Aid 101, expected family contribution. Sorry for those of you who already know this term. I'm going to share this with you again, though. Expected family contribution is your starting point. This is where you really need to become educated in what the colleges are expecting of you and what you're expecting of the college in return. This is your starting point. If there's only one action item that I'm going to have you do, this is it. Hop onto Google and type in EFC calculator. EFC calculator. By the time you file for financial aid in your senior year, you'll find out what your expected family contribution is, but that's too late. You don't have any chance to change things to your favor if you wait till then. So what I'd encourage you to do is find out what your expected family contribution is now. This takes into consideration your income, your assets, how many people are in your home. Do you have more than one child going to college at the same time? What's the age of the eldest parent? These are all little factors that determine the EFC. This is a index that the colleges will use to see, can we give this family this type of financial aid, or do we put them in this side of the financial aid and we give them merit scholarships? So it doesn't matter how much money you make or you don't make, you still always file for financial aid because colleges will award you appropriately. EFC will take into consideration your income, your assets, like we talked about, but they don't look at your retirement assets. So don't be afraid when you're saving for retirement that because you have that money saved for retirement that you can't qualify for financial aid. They don't even look at that. Okay? EFC is a good place for you to understand, what does the government really expect that I could afford for college? Now, again, remember that family that I told you that went to the Jacobs School of Engineering? Their EFC was really high because they had a good income. So even though they got their costs completely subsidized, don't take the EFC literally and say that's what you end up paying every year, because there are some schools that will actually give you more money than what your EFC is. We have to know the costs of the schools first. So when I go over these costs with you, this is everything for 1 year's cost. So it's tuition, it's books, transportation, room and board, and personal expense. This is everything that you're going to have in 1 year's cost. Cal State schools, $26,000. U schools, it's gone up. It has gone up, right? You paid $165 a semester. Yeah, that'll get you parking now.
But you're assuming room and board and everything, so in that scenario,
Yeah.
it might have been a commuter student.
Let's talk about commuter. Okay, so if you're going to a Cal State school commuting, tuition is $9,000. The rest is room and board. UC school, the tuition is about $15,000. Tuition at USC is $52,000. So it gives you an idea of where those numbers fluctuate. Out-of-state public school, $60,000 a year. I just use Michigan as an example. Okay? And then tuition increases by about 2% every year. So everybody in this room gets about a 20% increase in their income every year, right? No? Okay. So we need to be aware of tuition increase. So we talked about EFC. We talked about cost of attendance. Now we're going to ask a college what formula is used in order to determine if I'm qualified or eligible for financial aid. Every college that you're going to apply to in the United States will use this same exact formula. They take the cost of attendance subtracted by your expected family contribution. The difference between those two numbers is called your financial need. What's your name? Charlotte? Charlotte. So let's say that Charlotte's family has a $20,000 EFC, and they're looking at a Cal State school. What's Charlotte's need? Okay, only 2 people paid attention to the cost of college. That's good. So we have $26,000 minus $20,000. Yes, her need is $6,000. But now let's say Charlotte wants to go to Pepperdine, $70,000 a year, minus her EFC of 20. What's her need? 50. So do you see how that formula stays constant no matter what school Charlotte's really looking at? Okay. Now, if we wanted to really know what type of financial aid we can qualify for, there's a couple of questions that we have to ask the schools. So how many of you are planning to visit a campus during spring or over summer at some point? Okay. I want to make sure that you ask these questions when you're touring the school, because no college administrator will come out and just tell you these numbers. So we first have to understand the difference of financial aid. First type is called gift aid. Anytime you get a merit scholarship or you get a grant, this is money that you never have to pay back. This is called gift. The other type of financial aid is called self-help. This is in the form of a loan, or maybe you have a small job on campus that you're going to have to work, and it pays down your tuition. That falls under the work-study category. Once you understand this, let's move on to this. So now we want to know, what percentage of need do you meet? So if Charlotte's applying to Pepperdine and she has a $50,000 need, she's going to want to ask, how much of that do you help me with? So the question is, what percentage of need do you meet? The follow-up question to that is, what percent is gift and what percent is self-help? One of the biggest factors that goes into return on investment is the third question here, which is how long will it take to graduate from your college? Some of you parents are looking at me like, it's a 4-year education, Trevor. It's a dumb question. Why would I ask that? The reality is, it's very difficult for a lot of schools today to graduate a student in 4 years. A lot of schools are taking 5 years, 5.5 years to get a bachelor's degree.
Why?
Does anybody know why that's happening?
Is that because of course offerings? We just went to a class on it, because there's 6 million graduates and high school graduates applying to these colleges in California. 6 million.
Yeah, so what's happening is you get overcrowding at certain schools,
They don't have the
and they don't have the classes to offer.
Class.
So if we go back to this, everyone, for a second, where does your eye automatically go if we see this number versus this? Aren't we automatically just saying, well, this makes a lot more sense, right? What do you think happens over and over for every family in the United States? Well, most families, they're going to say, why would I do this if I could do this? This is what's perpetuated this problem, is you have overcrowding because most families assume that that's in the long run going to be less expensive. Let's just run the numbers real quick. This is a very typical family looking at a school, $60,000 a year. Their EFC is 15. Would you all agree that they have a $45,000 need? What's the first question we're asking every school? What percentage of need do you meet? So this school meets 100% of need. Follow-up question was?
What percentage of gift versus self-help?
What's gift and what's self-help? 85% gift, 15% self-help. Great. So now, well, let's do the numbers for this family. A $15,000 EFC, they receive just over $38,000 a year in free money, and then they chose to take the $6,700 loan. That was part of what they wanted to do. So add this plus this brings us to $21,750. Does everybody agree with that? Okay. That same family is going to also have a conversation about, well, what happens if we apply to a local school, a Cal State school? $25,000 is the cost. 15 is our EFC. Everybody agrees that we have a $1,000 need. Here is where the formula goes back into the favor of a school, and you need to be educated on this part because this is what most families will never know. The school that we chose here, the most that they can help us with is 30%. That's all that their budget will allow for. So if we have a $10,000 need, they can help us out with 30% of that. So they're going to give us $3,000 worth of financial aid. Would everybody agree that there's still $7,000 that's not met? If a school that you choose does not meet all of your need, whatever that amount is that they can't meet, goes right back onto your checkbook. You have to write the difference. So in this case, $7,000 gets added to your EFC. What's our new EFC? 7 plus the 15. 22. They're going to give 50% in gift, 50% in self-help. So at the end of the day, they're paying $23,500. The private school in this situation ended up being more cost-effective for the family. Albeit, yeah, $2,000 difference, great. But like we were just talking about, what about the length of time it takes to graduate? What about internship opportunities? Student to faculty ratio? Demand for starting salary? When I showed you that chart with the schools that you'd never heard of before, and I said, what do these have in common? The fact that they beat every single UC school in average starting salary should tell you that maybe I should get a little bit more educated in this. This family had a very high EFC. Their EFC was higher than any cost of attendance. Their family income was about $400,000 a year. Applied to 12 colleges, accepted to 7. Final 3 choices were Drexel, George Mason, University of Delaware. The amounts that you see here is all scholarship money, so there's no loan in this equation here. This student ended up choosing Drexel. Obviously, the scholarship is helpful, but what's unique about Drexel in her case is they offer a 5-year master's program in psychology. So she's actually going to be able to get her bachelor's and her master's in a combined program in 5 years. And when you really pencil out all the numbers for this education, they saved just over $100,000 on that education because of that. Looking at return on investment, that's one of the factors I would definitely encourage you to look at. Do schools offer combined programs where I can get a bachelor's and a master's all at the same time? This family's income was about $170,000 a year, so they did have need at schools. Applied to 9 schools, accepted to 5. Final 3 choices that were Santa Clara, Wabash College, and UC Santa Cruz. These are the amounts that the schools gave them. And then lastly, we have this family here. Income was below $65,000 a year. Out of the 11 schools, accepted to 7. 3 schools that we narrowed it down to were Franklin Marshall, College of Worcester, and Sonoma State. not every college is going to be a perfect match for all of you. You're all going to have your own unique schools that fit you the best. All I'm really trying to educate you on is what are the factors that you should be looking at beyond the name of the school. And I hope that I've done at least a decent job trying to educate you on that. Was this helpful? Okay, we finished with 30 seconds to spare. I'll be here to answer some general questions. If you wouldn't mind.